So they went on their way. The ship rode the water, broad-beamed, bound by its hawser and anchored fast. Boar shapes flashed above their cheek guards, the brightly forged work of goldsmiths watching over those stern-faced men. They marched in step, hurrying on till the timbered hall rose before them, radiant with gold. Nobody on earth knew of another building like it. Majesty lodged there, and its light shone over many lands. So their gallant escort guided them to that dazzling stronghold and indicated the shortest way to it. Then the noble warrior wheeled on his horse and spoke these words. "It is time for me to go. May the Almighty Father keep you and in his kindness watch over your exploits. I am away to the sea, back on alert against enemy raiders." It was a paved track, a path that kept them in marching order. Their mail shirts glinted, hard and hand-linked. The high-gloss iron of their armor rang. So they duly arrived in their grim war-graith and gear at the hall, and weary from the sea, stacked wide shields of the toughest hardwood against the wall, then collapsed on the benches. Battle dress and weapons clashed. They collected their spears in a seafarer's stook, a stand of grayish tapering ash, and the troops themselves were as good as their weapons. Then a proud warrior questioned the men concerning their origins. "Where do you come from, carrying these decorated shields and shirts of mail, these cheek-hinged helmets and javelins?" "I am Hrothgar's herald and officer. I have never seen so impressive or large an assembly of strangers. Stoutness of heart, bravery, not banishment, must have brought you to Hrothgar." The man whose name was known for courage, the great leader, resolute in his helmet, answered in return, "We are retainers from Hygelac's band. Beowulf is my name. If your lord and master, the most renowned son of Halfdane, will hear me out and graciously allow me to greet him in person, I am ready and willing to report my errand." Wulfgar replied, a Wendel chief, renowned as a warrior, well known for his wisdom and the temper of his mind. "I will take this message in accordance with your wish to our noble king, our dear lord, friend of the Danes, the giver of rings. I will go and ask him about your coming here, then hurry back with whatever reply it pleases him to give." With that he turned to where Hrothgar sat, an old man among retainers. The valiant follower stood foursquare in front of his king. He knew the courtesies. Wulfgar addressed his dear lord. "People from Geatland have put ashore. They have sailed far over the wide sea. They call the chief in charge of their band by the name of Beowulf. They beg, my lord, an audience with you, exchange of words and formal greeting. Most gracious Hrothgar, do not refuse them, but grant them a reply from their arms and appointment. They appear well-born and worthy of respect, especially the one who has led them this far. He is formidable indeed." Hrothgar, protector of Shieldings, replied, "I used to know him when I was a young boy. His father before him was called Ecgtheow. Hrethel the Greek gave Ecgtheow his daughter in marriage. This man is their son, here to follow up an old friendship, a crew of seamen who sailed for me once with a gift cargo across to Geatland, returned with marvelous tales about him. A thane, they declared, with the strength of 30 in the grip of each hand. Now holy God has, in his goodness, guided him here to the West Danes to defend us from Grendel. This is my hope, and for his heroism I will recompense him with a rich treasure. Go immediately, bid him and the Geats he has his attendants to assemble and enter. Say, moreover, when you speak to them, that they are welcome in Denmark." At the door of the hall, Wulfgar duly delivered the message. "My lord, the conquering king of the Danes, bids me announce that he knows your ancestry, also that he welcomes you here to Heorot, and salutes your arrival from across the sea. You are free now to move forward, to meet Hrothgar in helmets and armor, but shields must stay here, and spears be stacked, until the outcome of the audience is clear. The hero arose, surrounded closely by his powerful thanes. A party remained under orders to keep watch on the arms. The rest proceeded, led by their prince, under Heorot's roof. And standing on the hearth, in webbed links that the smith had woven, the fine-forged mesh of his gleaming mail shirt, resolute in his helmet, Beowulf spoke. "Greetings to Hrothgar. I'm Hygelac's kinsman, one of his hall troop. When I was younger, I had great triumphs. Then news of Grendel, hard to ignore, reached me at home. Sailors brought stories of the plight you suffer in this legendary hall, how it lies deserted, empty, and useless once the evening light hides itself under heaven's dome. So every elder and experienced councilman among my people supported my resolve to come here to you, King Hrothgar, because all knew of my awesome strength. They had seen me boltered in the blood of enemies when I battled and bound 5 beasts, raided a troll nest, and in the night sea slaughtered sea brutes. I have suffered extremes and avenged the Geats. Their enemies brought it upon themselves. I devastated them. Now I mean to be a match for Grendel, settle the outcome in single combat. And so my request, O King of bright Danes, dear Prince of the Shieldings, friend of the people and their ring of defense, my one request is that you won't refuse me, who have come this far, the privilege of purifying Heorot, with my own men to help me and nobody else. I have heard, moreover, that the monster scorns in his reckless way to use weapons. Therefore, to heighten Hygelac's fame and gladden his heart, I hereby renounce sword and the shelter of the broad shield. The heavy war, bored hand to hand, is how it will be. A life and death fight with the fiend. Whichever one death fells must deem it a just judgment by God. If Grendel wins, it will be a gruesome day. He will glut himself on the Geats in the war hall, swoop without fear on that flower of manhood as on others before. Then my face won't be there to be covered in death. He will carry me away as he goes to ground gorged and bloodied. He will run gloating with my raw corpse, and feed on it alone in a cruel frenzy, fouling his moor nest. No need then to lament for long or lay out my body if the battle takes me. Send back this breast webbing that Wayland fashioned and Hrethel gave me to Hygelac. Fate goes ever as fate must. Hrothgar, the helmet of the Shieldings, spoke. Beowulf, my friend, you have traveled here to favor us with help and fight for us. There was a feud one time, begun by your father. With his own hands he had killed Heatholaf, who was a wolfing. So war was looming, and his people, in fear of it, forced him to leave. He came away then over rolling waves to the South Danes here, the sons of honor. I was then in the full flush of kingship, establishing my sway over all the rich strongholds of this heroic land. Herogar, my older brother and the better man, also a son of half-Danes, had died. Finally, I healed the feud by paying. I shipped a treasure trove to the Wolfings, and Ecgtheow acknowledged me with oaths of allegiance. It bothers me to have to burden anyone with all the grief Grendel has caused, and the havoc he has wreaked upon us in Heorot, our humiliations. My household guard are on the wane. Fate sweeps them away into Grendel's clutches, but God can easily halt these raids and harrowing attacks. Time and again, when the goblets passed and seasoned fighters got flushed with beer, they would pledge themselves to protect Heorot, and wait for Grendel with whetted swords. But when dawn broke and day crept in, over each empty, blood-spattered bench, the floor of the mead hall, where they had feasted, would be slick with slaughter. And so they died, faithful retainers, and my following dwindled. Now take your place at the table, relish the triumph of heroes to your heart's content. Then a bench was cleared in that banquet hall, so the Geats could have room to be together, and the party sat proud in their bearing, strong and stalwart. An attendant stood by with a decorated pitcher, pouring bright helpings of mead, and the minstrel sang, filling Heorot with his head-clearing voice, gladdening that great rally of Danes and Geats. From where he crouched at the king's feet, Unferth, a son of Ecglaf, spoke contrary words. Beowulf's coming, his sea-braving, made him sick with envy. He could not brook or abide the fact that anyone else alive under heaven might enjoy greater regard than he did. Are you the Beowulf who took on Breca in a swimming match on the open sea, risking the water just to prove you could win? It was sheer vanity made you venture out on the main deep, and no matter who tried, friend or foe, to deflect the pair of you, neither would back down. The sea test obsessed you. You waded in, embracing water, taking its measure, mastering currents, riding on the swell. The ocean swayed, winter went wild in the waves, but you vied for 7 nights, and then he outswam you, came ashore the stronger contender. He was cast up safe and sound one morning among the Heathoremes, then made his way to where he belonged, in Bronding country, home again, sure of his ground, in strong room and bawn. So Breca made good his boast upon you, and was proved right. No matter, therefore, how you may have fared in every bout and battle until now, this time you'll be worsted. No one has ever outlasted an entire night against Grendel. Beowulf, Ecgtheow's son, replied, Well, friend Unferth, you have had your say about Breca and me, but it was mostly beer that was doing the talking. The truth is this. When the going was heavy in those high waves, I was the strongest swimmer of all. We'd been children together, and we grew up daring ourselves to outdo each other, boasting and urging each other to risk our lives on the sea. And so it turned out. Each of us swam holding a sword, a naked, hard-proofed blade for protection against the whale beasts. But Breca could never move out farther or faster from me than I could manage to move from him. Shoulder to shoulder we struggled on for 5 nights, until the long flow and pitch of the waves, the perishing cold, night falling, and winds from the north drove us apart. The deep boiled up, and its wallowing sent the sea brutes wild. My armor held me to hold out. My hard-ringed chain-mail, hand-forged and linked, a fine, close-fitting filigree of gold, kept me safe when some ocean creature pulled me to the bottom. Pinioned fast and swathed in its grip, I was granted one final chance. My sword plunged and the ordeal was over. Through my own hands the fury of battle had finished off the sea beast. Time and again foul things attacked me, lurking and stalking, but I lashed out, gave as good as I got with my sword. My flesh was not for feasting on. There would be no monsters gnawing and gloating over their banquet at the bottom of the sea. Instead, in the morning, mangled and sleeping, the sleep of the sword, they slopped and floated like the ocean's leavings. From now on, sailors would deep sea raids were over for good. Light came from the east, bright guarantee of God, and the waves went quiet. I could see the headlands and buffeted cliffs. Often for undaunted courage, fate spares the man it has not already marked. However, it had occurred. My sword had killed 9 sea monsters. Such night dangers and hard ordeals I have never heard of, nor of a man so desolate in surging waves, but worn out as I was, I survived. came through with my life, the ocean lifted and laid me ashore. I landed safe on the coast of Finland. Now I cannot recall any fight you entered, Unferth, that bears comparison. I don't boast when I say that neither you nor Brecca ever were much celebrated for swordsmanship, or for facing danger in the battlefield. You killed your own kith and kin. So for all your cleverness and quick tongue, you will suffer damnation in the pits of hell. The fact is, Unferth, if you were truly as keen or courageous as you claim to be, Grendel would never have got away with such unchecked atrocity, attacks on your king. Havoc in Herat and horrors everywhere, but he knows he need never be in dread of your blade making a mizzle of his blood, or of vengeance arriving ever from this quarter. From the victory shieldings, the shoulderers of the spear, he knows he can trample down you Danes to his heart content, humiliate and murder without fear of reprisal.